Hello.
Okay, so it's on now. Yes, and then we'll just turn. And I've got a mic to introduce. I told Deb I would.
Okay. So we're gonna do 7:20 then. 22.
7:20.
Okay.
We're ending it, okay. But you're gonna end it with, you said next coming in? Yes. Okay.
We're waiting for them to get everything ready out back.
Paula, you've got my vote.
Oh, thank you. Okay, tell everybody in the audience. Good evening, everyone. They're doing a couple last-minute things in the audio, and so we'll be starting in just a minute or two. But while they're doing that, I guess I could just tell you who I am and why you're here. I'm Colleen Feige. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Edina. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you, nice crowd, to the campaign forum for Edina Mayor. And I want to also thank Susan Clark and all of our volunteers that have made this possible. This is the first of 5 candidate forums that we're having in the week. So it's been a very busy time for us. And the busy time for you starts September 20th. And that's the day that you can vote. If you come right to City Hall, you can, those in Edina, can vote right here for the general election starting September 20th through November 4th. And then if you don't get it done before then, go to your polling place because voting is your power. We really need that to happen. You vote for who you want, but make it happen. It's important. Our democracy depends on it and you. So if they should be ready in just a minute or so. So then we'll start with the candidates for mayor. And this will run until about 7:20. Okay, we are good. Perfect timing. So thank you all for coming, and I'll turn it over to our moderator, Deb Brinkman, who is from St. Louis Park. Thank you very much, Deb.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. Is my microphone working? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for attending this forum this evening. The purpose of this evening's forum is to provide an opportunity to hear the candidates for mayor. Both candidates who filed with the Minnesota Secretary of State were invited to attend. Principal issues will be discussed tonight. We will try to cover as many issues as possible in the time that we have, about 45 minutes. Please feel free to contact a candidate directly if your question was not addressed here this evening. I will now explain the rules and format of tonight's forum. A candidate will remain seated throughout the entire candidate forum. A candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement and up to 2 minutes to answer one question that was sent out in advance. A candidate may have 1 minute to answer each question that was submitted by the Edina general community. A candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. League volunteers will time the candidate's responses and indicate to the candidate when they have 60 seconds remaining and 45 seconds remaining when there's a 2-minute question. And for all other questions, 30 seconds remaining and 15 seconds remaining will be the timer, and then you'll receive a stop sign. We would ask that you finish your sentence and your comment as quickly as possible. The moderator, me, will ask all questions. The League of Women Voters Edina determines which questions will be asked and attempts in good faith to cover the topics of interest indicated by the submitted questions. All written questions become the property of the League of Women Voters Edina. The City of Edina, our host site for this forum, decided in 2022 that they will not live stream the candidate forums for League of Women Voters Edina on any of the City of Edina's online platforms, including its website, YouTube channel, Facebook page, or Edina TV. The City of Edina is recording the forum for the League of Women Voters Edina and will provide an electronic copy to the League of Women Voters Edina at the end of this forum. The League of Women Voters Edina will put it on their website, LWVEdina.org, the next day or two following the candidate forum. Now we'll proceed with opening remarks by the candidate, and we'll proceed in alphabetical order by their first name. So the first opening statement will be Jim Hovland.
We've all learned a new form of alphabetizing tonight. Going on the first name. So, well, good evening, everybody. Here we go. With regard to the opening, I think you all know that I take a very positive approach and look forward with optimism on all we do together to make Edina a better place. So when I look at the key summary of findings in our 2023 Quality of Life Survey through the lens of understanding full well that this survey was conducted in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd, when we barely had the pandemic in the rearview mirror and during a time when the League of Minnesota Cities said stress or mental health was the #1 challenge for every city in Minnesota, I see in that Quality of Life Survey a high level of optimism by most of our residents that matches my own. I note that 9 out of 10 people think life in Edina is good or excellent in that 2023 survey, and I am encouraged that 2/3 of us think we are on a good path. I also know that we have been fiscally responsible during challenging times. Edina has maintained its fiscal excellence. For over the past 20 consecutive years, Edina has had a double AAA bond rating, the highest credit rating a city can have. We are a city where people want to live, work, and visit, a city where our kids are getting an excellent education. We are constantly looking forward, working to do better together to create a better tomorrow. I hope you will join me in going forward tomorrow together and make Edina an ever better place and doing it together.
Thank you, Jim. And again, let's keep track of our time, and we'll make sure that we try to end our questions as promptly as we can. So thank you very much. Ron, your 1-minute opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm running for office because it's time for change. Mayor Hovland's vision for Edina is grand, but impractical. It is an overscaled approach, relying increasingly on rezoning, variances, and tax breaks, or TIF, to subsidize developers, while the burden of paying for the necessary infrastructure falls to residents. Residential tax rates have risen beyond the rate of inflation for several years, moving to a proposed increase of 13% in 2025. A critical issue for our seniors on fixed incomes. I have heard from many homeowners who feel threatened by the encroachment of high-density development on their neighborhoods, an increase in traffic, and a decrease in their quality of life. As mayor, I will work diligently to limit tax subsidies to developers, preserve the character of our neighborhoods, give more voice to residents on issues that affect them, and promote financial accountability to limit the tax burden on homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we'll proceed to one question that was given to the candidates in advance. So the following question was sent out by the League of Women Voters Edina in advance. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to this question. And Ron, we'll start with you for the answer to this question.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'll ask the question if you don't mind.
Would you repeat the question?
Yes, please. What strategies do you support to reach the Met Council's goals for affordable housing in Edina?
Thank you. As the cost of homeownership continues to increase, we must address the shortage of affordable housing in Edina. The Met Council's goal for Edina is 1,804 units, yet no municipality has ever achieved its goals, suggesting that the formula is unrealistic. Our city is considered very desirable, and as a result, has very little undeveloped land available. So rather than focusing on a how many by when approach, I would take a more holistic view and assess the need for affordability as it is truly defined within our own community. My goal is to increase the affordable housing stock by eliminating the developer option, which is part of the city's affordable housing policy, of buying out the obligation to provide affordable units, thus making them permanently affordable without an expiration date as currently exists. By encouraging through zoning, permitting, and other incentives, smaller scale development of more co-ops, twin homes, and condominiums that will also fill the gap of missing middle housing which Edina critically needs. And also by focusing on our current stock of aging and smaller footprint homes, it is possible to assertively create tax credits, low-cost improvement loans, and adjusted rates on utilities to assist in maintaining an affordable and attainable housing stock that is needed for seniors, downsizing homeowners, and new residents looking for starter homes in Edina. Thank you. Beg your pardon?
Here you go.
Oh,
You brought some?
I did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Jim Hovland.
Thank you. By way of background, the Met Council makes population projections for the metro region. They're projecting that by 2050, we're going to be adding 650,000 people to the region, the 7-county metro region. Each city is found to have a responsibility with taking care of some of that projected population increase. The goal in the 2010 to 2020 comprehensive plan for Edina was 212 units, and for the period 2020 to 2030, Mr. Anderson mentioned our goal is set at approximately 1,800 units. There are no consequences for non-compliance, as the Met Council readily admits on their own website. There is not enough funding available to meet the needs for affordable housing. So they go about defining the need and then defining the goals and trying to allocate amongst all the cities in the metropolitan region the goals. So we are getting some funding now for affordable housing through an allocation of metro-wide sales tax. Our allocation for what is called local affordable housing aid is about $300,000 this year and should be about $600,000 in future years. We used to have no affordable housing policy or strategy and got very little done in creation of affordable housing until 2015, when we passed one of the Metro's first inclusionary affordable housing policies and hired an affordable housing manager in 2018. I think we should all be proud to say that between 2018 and 2023, we surpassed the 2020 comp goal of 212 units, and we're on a goal to be standing at 426 approved units as we go forward. How do we meet this goal, or how do we attempt to meet the goal that we've been assigned? With respect to attempting to meet the goals of the Met Council and the target set for Edina regarding new housing production, our primary tool will probably need to be the inclusionary redevelopment policy, requiring that 10 to 20% of every market rate apartment project include 10 to 20% affordable units. We can make steady and deliberate progress using that policy, but achieving a production of 1,800 by 2030 will be a challenge. We can also use TIF where appropriate. TIF is an appropriate source of financing for affordable housing, indicating a commitment by the city as a partner to leverage funding from other partners. It is a demonstration of a true commitment by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will start answering questions that we've received from the audience. And the responses to all of these questions will be 1 minute each. Jim, we'll start with you for our first question. And the question is, the topic is affordable housing. What are your plans to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing in Edina?
It's a great question and a really important question. We recently commissioned a study with the school district on how many kids were living in apartments. And in the market rate apartments, there weren't many kids. In the affordable housing units, there were some kids. Kids were in homes. And so we were figuring out how we going to allocate funds to take care of the needs of families with this naturally occurring affordable housing, using strategies around the land trust, where we put properties in a land trust to create more affordability, and also fixing them up and then reselling them at a lower market rate. So we've got a couple of different options in terms of increasing affordability from a purchase standpoint, and also from a rental standpoint. We can do some significant things that way too through our housing fund. So I think that we've got some options for the future, but naturally occurring affordable housing is a good way to be working on things, just like we have in the past with the 15 units that we've created that are in our marketplace right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Ron?
Thank you. The topic of naturally occurring affordable housing, I referenced it just a few moments ago. My first thought is creative tax credits, low-cost improvement loans, and adjusted rates on utilities. I mention these things because as an operator of affordable housing in the past and owning low-cost units in Edina today, I find that those are the restrictions that I have. They're older homes for the most part, and maintaining them is costly. The tax burden that is borne by the owners, which unfortunately either has to be passed on or just absorbed, makes these properties less attainable for people. Because sooner or later, you have to raise the rents to do that. I know that there's a way to do it. Last thought I would like to give is there is a pathway to ownership. And that will be an important piece going forward. How do we increase our affordable housing stock, and how do we truly create equity for those that can use that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. And Ron, we'll start with you for this next question.
Okay.
Do you support zoning changes to increase the amount of affordable housing in Edina? Why or why not?
Well, I referenced that earlier too, so these questions are perfect for me. I think that there is a possibility of changing zoning. I would look to changing zoning on the peripheries. And sometimes we find that zoning that might accommodate small developments could be two-story apartment buildings, it could be twin homes, it could be co-ops. That's the approach that I would like to see. I think one of the things that we hear over and over again from our residents is the incursion, if you will, of large-scale developments that move into or overwhelm our single-family neighborhoods. And so I think it's important to have a balance in all of these matters. I think it's the responsibility of local government to protect our single-family home neighborhoods, as well as to create opportunities for those that need them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim?
When we think about the potential for zoning changes to accomplish affordable housing goals, one of the things we've had a task force look at is the commercial industrial districts, and primarily the Cahill district in the past. Brought some ideas forward to the City Council. I think, as Ron mentioned, some of these ideas that resonate on the periphery of areas are good. I think even in the commercial industrial district, there were some key areas of potential addition of multifamily housing that the council will take a look at, I'm sure, at some point in the future. And over on the west side, we looked at a potential zoning change to accommodate some affordable housing over there. The proximity to single-family homes is always important. We've made a commitment to maintain the integrity of our single-family homes, and we intend to do that. So we don't want to be encroaching. I don't think we encroach anywhere right now on single-family homes with any form of multifamily housing.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be on the city budget, and Ron, we'll start with you with this next question. Does the 2025 city budget need to be so high? What do you see as a reasonable tax increase?
The city budget is determined by our accounting staff and under the direction of the city manager. The council really is in a position of only approving those budgets, and the council, I think, gives a great deal of consideration to that. I think it's very difficult to say when a budget is presented that you should scale it back. Now, I've made that suggestion in the past. I mean, where can we cut? Where can we reduce expenses? That hasn't been very successful in the past. I do think that number one, this 13% is only proposed. That's not been approved, and so I think that's important to note. Also, we have a little time here, and if there was strong consideration on the part of staff to how you might decide to reduce expenses in some way, that still could be done before this budget is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim?
Yeah, the 2025 budget is something that we'll make a decision on in December of this year. The staff has come forward with a recommendation on the capital improvement plan that we had advanced that by about 13%. We have to keep in mind that one of the things we did last year was that we agreed to hire 6 public safety officers. And that's going to take about a 5% increase as we add those folks into our into our employment base and try to make sure that our town and the people in it stay safe and secure. We want to make sure that that we meet job one, and that is to make sure that the people in our community are safe and secure in all that they do. So we'll make those determinations. I don't think we'll be anywhere near a 13% budget increase. There's no correlation between what the staff is proposing and what the city council will eventually decide to do. I expect it'll be somewhere in the area of reasonableness and somewhat competitive with what other cities do, but we also need to be mindful of the inflation aspects of it. And remember that 70% of our budget is labor, and we want to make sure that our employees that work for the city so effectively maintain a high standard of living. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And Ron, again, we'll start with you with this next question. The topic is on crime. How would you support Edina law enforcement efforts to address the current crime situation?
Thank you. Number one, I want to suggest that we should be very proud of our Edina police force. I think that they're one of the best in the metro. I think they are responsive. They do good work under very difficult circumstances, and so I would never criticize them. And it's good that we are now budgeted for more police officers in the city of Edina. What's interesting is that the National Board of Police Chiefs recommends that there be 3.3 police officers for every 1,000 of population. Now, we won't hit that, and I wouldn't know of any municipality that would. What that underscores is the fact that they see the profound need to have officers on the street in order to deter crime. We do a great job of responding to it, but without officers in evidence and visible, it's very, very difficult to respond. And so our budget must include that, and the question would be, why isn't there enough in our budget to do so? Because we have one of the highest tax bases in the state of Minnesota.
Thank you, Ron. And Jim.
You know, in the aftermath of George Floyd, when Minneapolis went down by 200 to 300 police officers, we saw crime seep into the suburbs, not just Edina, but in the second and third ring suburbs. So all the mayors met with public safety officials in Eden Prairie and decided we were going to do something about it. Our chiefs were very cooperative. We've continued that effort to reduce crime with both adding officers, but also adding technology. Many of you know we've been using these flock cameras to detect stolen vehicles coming into our community. So crime right now, the current crime situation is that we don't, everything is lower from a crime standpoint except for auto theft, which involves a lot of juveniles. And so we're still working on that particular part of it. But all other types of crime are down from what they were in the past. They're probably not quite at 2019 levels, but they're down. And we're feeling really good about the progress we're making. And as many of you have seen that have been watching the news, we've been picking up several people that have been coming into Edina with stolen cars because of the technology that we're using and the technology we will continue to use in the future to keep people safe.
Thank you very much, Jim. I just got a note here indicating that the time for this forum has been extended by 10 minutes. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we might need some more questions, just to let you know. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope that you all can hang with us. We really appreciate all of your attention here. All right, we will go on to our next question, and it has to do with the Southdale site. And Jim, we'll start with you with this question. Do you support TIF for Macy's Southdale redevelopment? Yes or no? And then please explain why.
That's a decision that hasn't been made yet. That matter is not before us yet as a proposal, so it would be inappropriate for me to opine on what I thought my conclusions would be after hearing all the presentations with respect to TIF.
All right, thank you, Jim. And Ron, would you care to have an opinion?
Yeah, I do have an opinion. Now, what I notice, I read today, and I think that was posted on the city manager's notes on September 6th, that the TIF request is in the $22 million range, but however, he mentioned that there was another $28 million of interest attached to that. Now, that's a significant amount of money. And so I think what we have to weigh there in terms of whether TIF is appropriate in any application is what's the volume? What are we doing? So if we look at, say, a $23 million TIF district on the corner of 70th and France, if we look at, say, 23 or 22 with an additional 28, then I would need to have that completely confirmed. with another 23 across the street, and then the potential of a $20 million underpass under France, I take a look at an awful lot of money, $90 million or well above, that is within 2 blocks there. So I think that all has to be questioned and evaluated very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We will delve into the TIF financing just a little bit more for a little bit more clarity here. Ron, we'll start with you. The question is, what are some appropriate and or inappropriate uses of TIF in Edina?
Thank you. I think when you throw out a word like TIF, most people don't understand it, nor do they understand the application of it. So I'm going to take an extra moment or two with maybe a bit of background. Tax increment financing is a tool that's allowed in the state of Minnesota, which theoretically leverages current tax revenues against future tax revenues to create economic gain. It's often used in blighted areas or contaminated land redemption. In Edina, almost always in redevelopment or renewal and renovation districts. The problem is that current tax revenues are locked in at low rates for up to 25 years, which withholds economic effects for decades. During that period of time, expenses associated with development such as street improvement, emergency services, sewer and water availability. I'm going to take just an extra moment here because I was told that we had some time beyond a minute for certain questions, such as street improvement, emergency services, sewer and water availability, and more are passed on to the taxpayers. One of the issues that we have in Edina is that the TIF districts are not closed out in a timely manner, as per the state auditor's office. We currently have 2 TIF districts, 70th and Cahill and Centennial Lakes, both well past their decertification dates, holding assets in excess of $18 million. Those assets should be released to the benefit of the taxpayers who own them. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. And then Jim, and we will allow you about an extra 30 seconds for your answer as well to this.
Yeah, I think the 2 primary purposes that we've used TIF for are if there's a purely public purpose on a particular project that creates a public benefit, distinct public benefit. And then we've used it, as I mentioned earlier, around affordable housing, because with market rate properties, if you put 10 to 20% affordable units in there, it will not work from a cash flow standpoint for the developer. So you got to think about using affordable, in those affordable housing situations, using TIF to help fund those affordable housing projects. With respect to what Ron is alluding to, there were some old TIF districts that continued to accumulate some money that we put into a spark fund to use per the state legislature's permission to promote small business during the period of COVID. With respect to any current districts that are formed in a certain period of time that the legislature designated, those cannot hold monies that then can be used for some other purpose other than what was originally intended. So when those TIF districts expire, when the debt is repaid off those TIF districts, you've got to close out the district and proceed forward with dispersing that money that's in that TIF district to the taxing entities, which are the city, the county, and the school districts that's involved.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it. And again, we appreciate your flexibility here. All right, the next question is a little bit more on land development. Jim, we'll start with you. What do you think is the best development of the Macy's property?
Well, we've approved a project on the Macy's site. It's got preliminary approval. It's pending final approval if it meets all the requirements that we preliminarily approved. So we think it's an excellent use of the property. It's had a lot of iterations and refinement over time because of citizen input. There's been a lot of developer meetings with citizens. I've had a lot of input with residents myself on this particular issue to try to improve the quality of the product. And I think it really works well within the confines of that 8-acre piece of property. It flows seamlessly between Centennial Lakes Promenade and the development itself. It's going to have beautiful restaurants, mixed use, retail. People are going to be able to move back and forth very well without feeling like the buildings are hanging over the promenade. it's I think, a development that will be, that we'll all be proud of in Edina, just like many of the other developments that we have that we've done in the past.
Thank you, Jim. And Ron?
So the question is, what is the best use of the Macy's site? And as Mayor Hovland mentions, there is an approved project there. If I were speculating, I might say that there could be other uses for that site, which might include more green space, certainly, that might not impose on the promenade in quite the way that it does. I think that a combination of office, housing, and potential other uses. The question becomes, when we approve or when the council approves a project such as that, what draws people to it? What energizes the site? And so what the question becomes, is the site more available or amenable to the people who would live there? Or is it available and amenable to people who might be close and might be coming? So if I were to reimagine it, I might take a look at architectural values. I might consider other uses for that site, but to say this one or the other in the face of an approved project is a little beyond me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We have one follow-up question. This is just a yes or no answer. And so, Ron, we'll start with you on this one. Do you support a below-grade crossing between Macy's and 7250 France?
No.
And Jim? Do you support, yes or no?
Can't answer it that way. It's still in the dream process. It's in the process of being considered as a possibility. So I can't opine on that. I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on.
That's a little bit clearer way of saying it is I don't know yet.
Sure. Very good. Thank you. All right, our next question has to do with just your general working relationship and how you work. And Jim, we'll start with you on this one. What is your strategy to work productively with people who do not share your opinions?
Oh, I think I've done that all the time I've been mayor. I think it's that fundamental concept of democracy that all voices should be heard and all voices matter. Now, you don't always agree with people at the end of the day, but all of those opinions that you get from people, whether you agree with them or not, help you make a better and more well-reasoned decision. So I'm always open to meeting with anybody on a particular project, and I think that's been the experience people in our town have had. I don't think anybody's had a problem getting a meeting with me if they really wanted to meet with me on a project.
Thank you, Jim. And Ron?
I believe that collaboration is the best way to come to confront issues. And in doing that, I think one of the things that I would mention is if I were to be the mayor of this town, I would have published office hours and be readily available to meet with residents on demand. Because if we do that, then if there's, say, a half-hour slot or 5 half-hour slots available on a Tuesday afternoon, that allows complete conversations and thorough problem-solving approaches. And that's how, I think that's how you deal with people that don't agree with you. It's listen very carefully, because there's always value in every conversation. And sometimes you can come around to a point of view that you might not otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Our next question has to do with infrastructure.
Did I have time left on mine on that? I was thinking about a response. Did I? Oh, just a few seconds? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to relate a meeting that Member Jackson and I had several months ago with regard to a particular project with people in the Cornelia neighborhood.
You can cover that information in your closing statement.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure. All right, so our next question, again, we're going back to infrastructure. And so, Ron, we'll start with you on this question. Who pays for infrastructure expansion with development projects? The taxpayer, developer, or the city of Edina?
Well, I think there's a combination there, actually. I think that often there's required infrastructure improvement that has to be made to accommodate a development. But again, often that's covered in a TIF district, so who actually pays for that would be the question. I think very often, and one of the burdens that people feel today, and we look at large tax increases, whether it winds up at 13% or something less than that, is that the burden of extending emergency services to an increased population, as well as infrastructure repair, as well as the ability to provide traffic and access, is going to be borne by the taxpayer. And that's what we're all feeling today, is that those expenses are not borne by the developer. I've suggested in the past that we try to break down what is a police call cost per call, and shouldn't that be expressed to the developer at least over the course of the TIF district? Because we're not getting the dollars out to do that, and there are probably many other applications along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Jim,
What was the question, please?
who pays for infrastructure expansion with development projects? The taxpayer, developer, or the city of Edina?
Well, it depends on the particular project, but most of the time the developer is paying for it. But if we see a distinctly public purpose in something that's a TIF-related project, for example, then part of that burden is taken on by the TIF district funding itself. So the situation that we have with respect to the Macy's site, that particular circumstance would be that if that project were approved for TIF use, still all of the maintenance would be taken care of and performed by the developer itself. And we also ask before every project that we put in front of the council, the staff determines whether or not, with the police and fire department, whether or not a particular project will cause any particular difficulty for the city services in terms of enhanced service. With respect to the Macy's project, for example, we were told that it would not. It's the general sort of pressures that we feel in the community that would cause you to have to think about enhancing services from a police or fire standpoint.
Thank you very much, Jim. We'll stay on the topic of land development, and Jim, we'll start with you with this next question. What type of use do you think would be appropriate for the Keys Auto Repair Shop location?
A great question. We've wrestled with that because of the odd shape of the property. And so, it's a zone for auto. It's guided for housing. I've had a couple of developers tell me that they've looked at it and they can't figure out how to do housing on it. There's another project, I think it's coming forward with respect to that particular site. So it's hard to opine on what we would think about that until we see it. But it is a worrisome site, and whether we can limit what kind of uses can be there in the future if we were to approve some kind of spot use, I think that's also questionable under the zoning code. So we got to be careful about what we do over there. But it does seem like, though housing is natural, that it does pose some problems in terms of being able to be constructed because of the lack of quantity of product that you could get on the site.
Thank you very much, Jim. And Ron?
Thank you. I agree that the configuration of the site, it represents the most difficulty in development there. There have been several options that have come forward. None of them have proved acceptable to the council. In the end, to me, the most important use of that site is an amenity that the people in the neighborhood have access to. We haven't found yet the right note that can be hit there. And part of it is that the site's a very expensive site. And so what do you put on a very expensive site that has the cash flow that you're seeking? And that, I think, is what developers deal with. I would far prefer to see an easy in, easy out type of coffee shop, gathering place, that kind of thing. The proposals that have come forward haven't quite hit that, haven't quite hit the note where the neighborhood can come for breakfast or lunch and then maybe no evening meals. That's the kind of thing I would like to see, and that's what I hear very often from people that live in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. All right, we have one more question on land use and land development. And Jim, we'll start with you for this one. What will happen to the existing art center if we decide to move into the Hennepin County Library?
I think at present, the Art Center is part of a master planning project by the Park and Rec Department, so that'll be one aspect of it. But we're very reluctant to to get rid of city-owned property, park property. We've done it one time in the time I've been involved, and that's to create the police and fire training facility. But I would suspect that it would continue to have a purely public use in some form or fashion on that particular site. I think it's, in the past we've looked at potential of selling it and looking at housing options over there, but I think people are really reluctant to part with parkland. I don't think we want to do any parting with parkland.
Thank you very much, Jim. And Ron?
Yeah, thank you. That's a speculative question, obviously. And so what is the best use for that? It's a city-owned property. The taxpayers own that site. What would the taxpayers feel that is the best use for it becomes the question. And I agree with the mayor that what you would like to see there is some extended use of the park itself. Can that building be used in some way that provides an amenity that is part of the park system that can actually be used? Is that a destination point for biking? What exactly can go in there? And I that's a head scratcher for me, but that's what I would do, is find some configuration of park-related and public-related services that fit onto that site. And that's another tough site, except that it is beautiful in there all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. All right, we will switch topics now, and we will talk about cannabis. And Jim, we'll start with you with this question. How does the legalization of cannabis affect Edina, and how do you plan to address its use?
We're in the process of doing that now, and when the law was first passed by the state, we had a chance to impose a moratorium on the use of cannabis or the construction of any cannabis facilities, and that's what we did. And so we're still in that moratorium period. What we will be thinking about doing is meeting that state requirement. I think we've got to have make available one cannabis facility per 12,500 population. So we're going to have probably 5 or 6 of them that we have to deal with. But we're trying to make sure that we can regulate that as tightly as possible. And so that's still in the works. We've got our lawyers and our city staff working on drafting ordinances that'll give us the best possible sort of regulatory authority over this particular industry, which we think is important to do.
Thank you very much, Jim. And Ron?
Cannabis use is legal in the state of Minnesota, and there will be demand, and you can't necessarily prevent retail sales. For me, the line that you clearly draw there is the city cannot be associated in any way at all with merchandising cannabis. There should be nothing in liquor stores or availability through any kind of city-operated or condoned location. Having said that, I think that the key there is to establish severe penalties for operators who might consider sales to minors, or where minors could potentially gain access and have access to those drugs. Proximity to schools would also be a major question for me. I don't think that it would or should be ever approved with any kind of proximity to schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more question, and the question, Ron, we'll start with you. What will you do to engage voices of all Edina residents?
Thank you. I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I have mentioned and would proceed with if elected would be to have established office hours for complete and absolute availability. I think very often people feel that it's difficult to make appointments. That's all. And so I think if there's established hours and people knowing that they can come and have access to, say, the mayor and a council member at the same time, that makes a lot of sense to me. So that's one thing that I would do. Availability is the key, and as I've mentioned before, collaboration with the public in all matters is really the key to having success and working through issues that we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Jim?
Yeah, thank you for that. When I first started, we were in the old building, and we didn't even have a communications department, and we've been constantly working on improving our communications with our residents, I think, for the better. We've gotten really effective over time. The publications go out to all of the residents in our community about town, Edition Edina, really successful publications. And then in terms of engaging the public, we try to make sure that we do an effective job with respect to all the projects that come before us to make sure that we get broad notification, broad input on that. And I'd also say that with all the visioning work that we've done, we've really invited the public in, and we've had extensive conversations there to build community interest and community commitment to working together to figure out what the vision is going to be for Edina, whether it was Vision Edina in 2015, the comp plan in 2018, or any of the small area plan studies that we've done. Always involve the public, always involve the neighbors so that we get this collective vision of where we want to go.
Thank you very much, Jim. Now we will proceed to our closing statements, and we'll reverse the order of which we did the opening statements. So, Ron, we will start with you for your closing statement, and you'll get two minutes for your closing statement. 2 minutes. Is it
We were
supposed
told
to be
1
one?
minute.
1 minute.
All right, we can go with
But
1
I could
minute.
expand a little, with your permission. I'd like to thank the Women's League of Voters for sponsoring and presenting tonight's forum, as well as those here tonight and who hopefully others who will find this event online. Your interest here this evening shows that you, like me, care about the future of our city and that you are interested in making the right decision for our community. What is the right decision for Edina? The city's own quality of life survey has shown a steep decline in confidence in council decision-making, as well as the financial decisions made. The main reason given for that decline is concern about rapid, overly dense development and its inevitable consequences on our future. If you wish to review that data, it's available on my website. The most important obligation of any elected official is to act in the best interests of those who elect them. So tonight, I ask for your vote, not just for me, but for the future of our city. Together, and as your mayor, we can build a much brighter future for the city of Edina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. And again, Jim, we'll go to your closing statement. And a quick reminder, we're using a 1 minute timer for your closing statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Based upon the community forum vision of our future, I see Edina building on its reputation as a regional center of excellence for medical care, retail shopping, and financial services. I foresee the Southdale district becoming a village within our town, easily accessed with full walkability, more and more extensive green space, and with less and less hardscape, all done over time. Living, working, and recreating all in one part of our town. I see well-managed and well-functioning infrastructure, making transportation movements comfortable and not frustrating, a part of living and not part of effort. I foresee more people living there, too, in the Southdale district, but not a great deal more, a gentle sort of density, all part of an evolving housing culture of people, including seniors who've sold their houses who desire to continue living in Edina, newcomers who want to raise their families in Edina and will eventually move into single-family neighborhoods. For them, for now, apartments are homes, too. With more density, we can also support the amenities we have come to appreciate. If we want to do what we've always done in the past, visioning together for our future, let's keep it going. I want to be moving forward together. I want to cooperate and have a bright future for all of us. I appreciate your support on November 5th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in this forum and for your willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for public office. Thank you to the League of Women Voters Edina for sponsoring this forum, the City of Edina for videotaping the forum, and for providing it to the League of Women Voters Edina. It will be available within the next day or two after the forum.
Would you be willing to give out that access information again? Also write it down.
The website will be www.lwvedina.org. That's where the videotape will be. Thank you to the audience for attending tonight's forum. Please remember to vote by 8 p.m. Tuesday, November 5. Early voting begins on Friday, September 20th at Edina City Hall. This concludes the forum for Mayor of Edina. Good evening.